The snow-covered mountain stood like a sentinel, its jagged peaks disappearing into a veil of heavy clouds. An eerie stillness hung in the frigid air as Rachel, Mark, and Lisa set out on a winter hiking expedition. Their backpacks were filled with supplies, their hearts filled with excitement, and their faces concealed beneath layers of winter gear. They had chosen this remote mountain, known as Black Frost Peak, for its untouched wilderness and its reputation as a challenging but rewarding climb. The trail was rugged, winding through dense pine forests and up steep slopes. As they ascended, the temperature plummeted, and the world around them transformed into a pristine, snow-covered wonderland. The day passed in a blur of awe-inspiring vistas and challenging terrain. As they reached higher altitudes, the world below disappeared, shrouded in a thick veil of fog. Rachel, the most experienced of the group, led the way, her hiking poles crunching in the snow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they reached a small clearing where they decided to make camp for the night. They set up their tents, started a campfire, and settled in for a night of stargazing and camaraderie. But as the hours passed, a sense of unease settled over them. The forest was eerily silent, devoid of the usual nocturnal sounds. The stars above seemed unusually distant, as if they were observing the group's every move. Mark, the most adventurous of the trio, decided to venture a short distance from the campsite to take a few nighttime photos. He walked away from the firelight, disappearing into the darkness. Minutes turned into hours, and Mark still hadn't returned. Growing concerned, Rachel and Lisa called out for him, their voices lost in the vast, frozen silence. They searched the surrounding area, but found no sign of their friend. Panic set in as they realized that Mark had vanished without a trace. With heavy hearts, they decided to stay put, hoping that Mark would return to the campsite on his own. Hours passed, and the temperature dropped further, turning the forest into a frozen wasteland. As they huddled around the dwindling campfire, they heard it, a distant, haunting melody that seemed to emanate from the very mountain itself. The tune was melancholic and ethereal, as if carried by the wind. Rachel and Lisa exchanged uneasy glances. "Did you hear that?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling. Lisa nodded, her eyes wide with fear. It sounded like singing. The singing grew louder, drawing closer to the campsite. It was as if an unseen presence was approaching, its voice echoing through the frozen trees. They called out for Mark again, but there was no response. As the singing reached a crescendo, Rachel and Lisa were overcome by a sense of dread. They couldn't see anything in the darkness, but they felt a presence all around them, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a spectral silhouette that seemed to materialize out of thin air. It was Mark, his face pale and his eyes vacant. He moved toward them with a slow, deliberate gait, his lips forming the words to the haunting melody. Rachel and Lisa backed away in horror, their hearts pounding in their chests. This was not the Mark they knew. He had become a vessel for something otherworldly, something ancient and malevolent. As Mark drew closer, the temperature plummeted further, and the campfire extinguished with a hiss. Rachel and Lisa were left in total darkness, the only sound the eerie singing of their friend. Desperate to escape, they turned and fled into the frozen wilderness, guided only by the distant glow of the moon. They stumbled through the snow, their breath forming icy clouds in the air. Hours passed, and exhaustion threatened to overcome them, but they dared not stop. The singing had faded into the distance, but they knew that the mountain held more secrets, more horrors lurking in the frozen shadows. At last, they reached the edge of the forest and stumbled onto a snow-covered road. A passing car stopped to pick them up, and they recounted their harrowing ordeal to the driver. Back in the safety of civilization, they were left with the chilling memory of Black Frost Peak and the frozen echoes that had haunted them. Mark was never found, and the mountain remained a place of unsolved mysteries and unspoken terrors. They knew that some mountains held secrets best left buried in the snow, for the echoes of the past could still be heard by those who dared to listen.